Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to TED Talks Ball with Pedro, Pete D. Burge of Niners DNA. Pete, how are you doing today, my friend?
Well, it's Tuesday morning here. It's a beautiful day in Sydney. I've changed offices and I am very. I don't see anyone beating this team at the moment. I mean, the big test is going to be Sunday night football, but when your team is playing as good as this, you can't help but be a very happy Niner fan.
No, yeah. I mean, I'd say the offense looks unbeatable, unstoppable. The defense,
Something
not
happening.
quite.
I don't know what is doing there. He's supposed to
Yeah,
going to
I
get a
think they're
sack.
missing Jimmy Ward. I think we're missing Jimmy Ward in those defensive ends, Ebukam and Amenahu.
Yeah,
Um, and Bosa, I don't think is quite up to speed. And I think they're letting people hold him more than they used to. I mean,
yeah.
it was always bad, but it was awful in that game.
It was
Um,
unbelievable.
yeah, crazy. So let's see here. Um, as far as the game goes, well, do we want to dive right into it? So
Let's
you think the 49ers are the best team in football? Let me ask you this,
okay.
Pedro. Did you watch the Bills Dolphins game
Yes.
Sunday morning? What did you think of that?
You are right. It was so dynamic. There was people flying everywhere. That offensive scheme that McDaniel is doing, I think you can see that Shanahan was benefiting a lot from that brain of McDaniel. Those some of those like some of that set dressing, or those movements before the snap was unbelievable. The stuff that um, the little tiger, if I'm trying to think of his name. Um,
Are you talking about Tyreek Hill?
Tyreek, the speed, his hands. Uh, I'm a big fan of Raheem Mostert and what he can do. He wasn't great yesterday, but he caught a great ball down the sideline. Um, and yeah, the Bills looked really dynamic as well. They've got a really good run game. As you can see, they're trying to set up the run for Allen, for Josh there, and it was a really good football game. It was a shootout, and it was two offensive minds, two really good Ds as well, going to work. And I know that, but as much as I was impressed by that game, and I did watch the game in 40. I'm on DAZN or DAZN down here. We got the Game Pass down here, and I didn't watch it live or anything like that. But yeah, caught up the game in 40, and you know I didn't see everything, every part, but I saw every snap, obviously, and I just can't wait for our boys to play to play those teams, because that's the bar, that's the barometer, and the biggest test I think will be against Dallas. But at this time, I personally, and I respect I respect where you're coming from, and um, I can say that I'm ready to crown him. I'm ready to crown Brock Purdy.
Hey, I can see why. Especially when you start to look at the streak, other than his injury and everything. But I still have my same doubts, which is like, um, limited arm, limited height, limited top speed, and basically the thing for me is these teams we've played this year. Like, not only have we not played a contender yet, I mean, you could argue we haven't played a playoff team yet. I mean, the closest thing I think is the Steelers. And if you saw what happened to them against the Texans,
Yeah,
um, you know, um, they obviously beat the Browns, who I think the Browns are a pretty solid squad, especially when Deshaun Watson's healthy. The Raiders, come on, it's Jimmy G and no D.
yeah.
That doesn't mean much to me at all. And so then, other than that, then those are the only two wins for the Steelers. Their defense is pretty anemic. So yeah, so like I love that we've done it, but like even last year, like I said, all the D's we played, mostly bad or banged up D's. The two best D's in the regular season were the Bucks and the Commanders. The Bucks were heavily injured, and they were 15th overall for the season anyway. but they were missing both safeties, one of their top 3 corners, and Vita Vea went down first drive of the game. And then against the Commanders, Riverboat Ron gave us the ball 4 times inside their 35. That's 12 to 28 free points. So, so then the Seahawks, great playoff game, great. But they're the 25th ranked D of 2022. And then the Cowboys, 19 points, a circus grab by Kittle that goes the other way. Who knows what happens? Pollard doesn't get injured in the first half. Who knows what happens? So this is huge for me. I quote tweeted and said that I thought this might be there was a quote from Jonathan Hankins, who is a Cowboys defensive tackle. And apparently they have a lot of defensive tackles now that they didn't have versus us last year. They have Hankins, who's a big, massive, he's kind of like a Vince Wilfork type, like a big space eater, 2-gapper, you call him, where it takes 2 blockers to move him. Then they got this guy, Mozzie, who they drafted 27th overall in the first round out of Michigan. And everybody got on him because he's not a pass rusher. And we're not even drafting him to be a pass rusher, man. He's a run stopper. And then they got some other guy named Ogabogi or something like that, who's a good pass rushing defensive tackle. And then they have great edges with obviously Micah Parsons is right up there with Nick Bosa as one of the best edges in the NFL with TJ Watt and Myles Garrett. And then they have DeMarcus Lawrence, who's the one who actually injured Nick Mullins when he hurt his UCL down there in Dallas, almost the same way that Purdy did with Ridgeway in Philadelphia in the NFC Championship game. And then they had a young guy named Sam or something Williams, who had like 8 or 9 sacks last season too, 8.5, 9, something like that. So that Cowboys D-line is fierce. And I just had a Cowboys content creator on just now at 1 o'clock my time till about 1:30, and he was telling me that this is the first time this Cowboys offensive line has ever played together, ever.
Wow.
And they're already, even with mixing and matching these dudes, they're right up there, the top 3 offensive line in football with the Eagles and the Lions. And I would say the Chiefs, but it's really the Chiefs' interior offensive line. They have 2 new tackles. They're no longer in the top offensive line conversation, in my opinion. And I think the statistics are starting to bear that out too. So that's a lot to get started with, but I think it's important to talk about because a lot of people are like, oh, the Cards beat the Cowboys. The Cards beat the Cowboys. And I'm like, yeah, 80% of the Cowboys O-line was out for that game. They're all going to be back. Not only that, but like Diggs had just torn his ACL on the Thursday before. They had literally like one walkthrough to adjust to it, and then they had to go play the Cards. So there's no way you could compensate for that. And they're like, people are like, oh, well, they ran the ball. And I'm like, well, yeah, they ran the ball, but when you have a lockdown corner, that allows you to focus your whole D on the other half of the field. And he locks down one half, all the rest can go deal with the other half. It allows the safety to come down out of the, too high and play, in the box to help stop the run. And guess what? The Cards threw for not a ton of yards. I think it was like 180 yards versus like 222 on the ground, but 180 yards. And when you throw, that softens up the run D. That makes it easier to run. So like Diggs being out was big. The O-lineman being out was big. And so that's why I was saying I'm not sweating the Cards for our game in my preview article. I was like, I don't fear them at all because we don't have these same issues. And people don't understand like they're like, oh, well, if we miss 4 of our 5 O-line, it wouldn't hurt. And it would because we don't have much depth. But also it's like the Cowboys are a great O-line and the next guys up are not. And it's also this continuity. Like you could put 4 great guys in there, and if they don't know what the guy next to him is doing, it's not going to look real good, no matter how talented they are.
That's
so
right.
So that's a little bit of my overview to get things started here. We kind of dived in early, but we can circle back later too for folks.
No, but before you go there, I think it's really sound thinking. And the thing is that I've always had a thing that I live by. If you don't, you've got to stand by your opinions, Ted, right? And if you agree with everyone, I mean, the actual saying is, if you don't have any enemies, then you haven't stood up for what you believe in.
Right. I got plenty of enemies, as you can see on Twitter.
Well, this is the thing, right? This is the thing, and that's why I like your content, and that's why we do this thing together. And so, and when I say I'm ready to crown, it's like if you think about the analogy, just say, if you've seen the movie, I'm trying to think of the name of it, The King's Speech. It's like we're in the rehearsal, we're doing the rehearsal, getting ready to crown the new king, right? That's where, for me, that's where we are. When he beats Dallas, I think for me, and I was just thinking as you're talking, there's a documentary that I love called When We Were Kings, and it's about the Rumble in the Jungle, right?
Mm-hmm. So Muhammad
And
Ali and Frazier, is that who it was?
yeah, that's right. Ali and
Foreman.
Foreman.
Mm-hmm.
And they talk about a time in this fight in Ali's life was a time when he knew he had to dig the deepest to beat this guy. And
Yep.
until then, you cannot call them a champion, right? I want to see Purdy on the ropes, fighting for his life and win. That's a champion status. That's a king status.
There you go. Yeah, no, I want to see that too. And it's just like, he was 20 for 21. It's incredible. He threw deep. He threw back shoulder. There was so much to like from that game
Oh,
on
he was
Sunday.
beautiful. He was on. I
With
loved it. It was so,
confidence.
yeah, he was incredible.
Yeah.
And if we look at, we'll just go to, this is Mayoko, can't say it properly. So the
Matt Mayoko, yeah.
Matt Mayoko, yeah, passing rating leaders, Purdy 115.1, Tua 114.4 after yesterday, Wilson 106, Josh Allen 106, Justin Herbert 106.
But I mean, come on. Does anyone think that Tua or Purdy's the best QB in the NFL? It's the system and these weapons.
Yeah.
These efficiency scores and these passer ratings, a lot of them are system. Last year, Purdy had 107, but Jimmy was 103. And I think Jimmy is the perfect thing to look at because, Jimmy, I'm like, hey, Jimmy G got carried. I said it last year. I called him Jimmy Luggage with all the G's capitalized and luggage. And I was like, he's going to fall on his face when he goes to the Raiders. Sure as shit. Here he is, leading the league in interceptions in only 3 games. He's got 6 picks. I'm like, surprised? Hardly, not at all. And so I'm saying if Jimmy got carried, then Purdy's getting carried too, just not quite as much. Purdy's definitely was a little better last year. And if he keeps up like Sunday, then all right, yeah, he's noticeably better than Jimmy in that case. But I'm just not ready to crown him yet. Rob stats, some people, Larry came at me. I don't know if you saw that, but Larry called me out on his show and he's like, learn these words. I was wrong, Ted. Don't be a weasel, Ted. Don't be a moron, Ted. And I was just like, I clipped it out and I'm just like, you're such a hypocrite. He's like, but I hate to call people names, but sometimes I don't, and it's just like,
That's
so I clipped it out.
disrespectful. That's
Oh,
disrespectful.
it is,
That's
and I went right at him because me, I'm not gonna stand for that. And then and then he came at me. And he's like, "Oh well, I was just busting your balls, Ted." He's like, "You just need to be authentic." And I'm like, "Authentic? I am being authentic. I'm telling my truth. If I'm being inauthentic, if I just kowtow to whatever you say, I'm sure that you'd find that." He said something about being entertaining. I'm sure you'd find that entertaining if I did. But the guy. And now he's looking good because Purdy looked great on Sunday, but it's a long season, and I'm not rooting against Purdy. I'm just saying I don't think it's going to look like that the whole season, folks. I know that the defenses we face are not going to look like the Cards D. If you want to know why, name a Cards defensive player for me, people, without looking it up. Name a Cards D lineman. Name a linebacker that isn't the one that picked off Dak last week. I think it's Kaiser White or Kaiser Elam or whatever his name is, Kaiser or something. Name a DB because Buda Baker wasn't there. That's the one everybody would name. There's one rookie corner who I think is pretty good, but I don't think many people know him either. So, yeah. So yeah. And then, so then I'm like, okay, now I'm busting your balls back, Larry. And then he blocks me, cause he's just a hypocrite. He's like a bully. My mom always taught me if a bully comes at you, punch him in the face. So that's what I did. And he freaking ran away. So, I told him, I said, basically, I'll admit I was wrong when we win a Super Bowl, and not until then, because we got to the Super Bowl with Jimmy already. We got to the NFC Championship with Jimmy already. Like, win the Super Bowl, and I'll say, hey, great. And that's a little unfair. That's really more of a Kyle thing than a Brock thing. If Brock is like balling out like he was on Sunday, the whole season, and everything falls apart, somebody gets injured, some fluky play happens, the D falls apart, or all the weapons get injured. All right, yeah, I'm not going to hold that against Brock Purdy. I'm realistic, but I just say the Super Bowl thing just in general, just to put in people's mind, like, it's not going to happen week 4, and probably not going to happen week 5. But yeah, this might be the biggest matchup of the whole NFL season, Niners versus Cowboys, until the NFC Championship game, where guess who I picked to be there? Niners versus Cowboys.
Mm.
So I don't know. We'll
So,
see.
and that's to me, and you're not the only person that thinks that the Super Bowl is the crowning moment, right? So, um, I can all I can say is that with all those things that you mentioned, and it was a layered opening, and it just makes perfect sense. So,
Thank
you know, I there are multiple facets to, especially with, and even the beat reporters said yesterday, can you imagine what it would be like if you hadn't assigned McCaffrey? They're talking about him being the MVP.
Yeah, he is. I've been saying it for weeks. I was saying it all off season. I said
Yeah.
McCaffrey is the real star of this show. He is
And
the
that's and
engine
you're
that makes Shanny's system purr.
and he had, and Shanahan's response to that was, "Don't ever say that."
Whatever, Kyle. It's true. I always wondered, what would Kyle's system look like with a real running back, a premier running back, instead of you know, somebody off the scrap heap like Mostert or Jeff Wilson Jr. or who was the third one? Oh, Breida. They're all
Freedom.
undrafted free agents. They were
Yeah.
guys off the street. Like, I always wondered what he would look like with Nick Chubb or Saquon Barkley or Alvin Kamara or Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
He's
And it's
premier elite. Derrick Henry is not really going to fit our style exactly, but you know what I mean. That sort of skill level of running back, one who can
and
carry a team. Elite running backs.
4 touchdowns.
4.
He's the star of the show.
Yeah, absolutely. And we broke some records in that game. Purdy broke the most consecutive completions in a row that was held by Steve Young. So that's a new record. CMC broke the most consecutive games with a touchdown. He beat Jerry Rice's record. I think he's got like 13. And then I've got a graphic here that I've been talking about. 115 scrimmage yards plus 1 touchdown in each of the first 4 games of the season. Since 1950, there are 6. So 58, it was Jim Brown, one of the best running backs of all time, if not the best. O.J. Simpson in 75, who was a hell of a back in his day.
He was
Billy
good.
Sims, and that was with the Bills. And obviously Jim Brown was with the Browns. Billy Sims with the Lions in 1981. He was no Barry Sanders, but he was real good out of Oklahoma, I believe. And then 2 Cowboys, Emmitt Smith in 95, obviously the all-time touchdown and yardage leader for running backs. And then DeMarco Murray in 2014, and now Christian McCaffrey joins that vaunted list. Very short list over 50 years, 6
And
guys.
the other
So
thing
about
too,
once a
this
decade, kind of generational almost, or
yeah,
semi-generational.
and the one thing that I can say for Kyle and his team, he has put together an outstanding team, and that's what makes what makes this team sing. Obviously, is the parts within that make the whole. And so, I think to and it's always good to talk about a quarterback who has played so brilliantly yesterday, and obviously CMC. But there's a whole other engine room that makes those things tick. So let's look at the whole before we start crowning individual players.
Sounds good. Real quick, Donald Johnson said, I wanted CMC in the draft. And this is interesting because, all offseason I was beating up Kyle about making QB mistakes. And first and foremost was passing on Mahomes for Cousins, not getting Cousins. And then people say, oh, well, nobody knew Mahomes. I said, well, I wanted Deshaun Watson. He just won the Natty against Bama, against Saban's Bama, when they were like Georgia is now, the dominant NC2A college football program. And then people say, well, we weren't ready for a quarterback. I said, great. Then we drafted the wrong guy from Stanford. We took Solomon Thomas, should have been CMC. We took Solly,
Solomon Thomas.
number 3 overall, and should have been CMC number 9 overall. Or, well, we should have taken him at number 3 and not let him slip to 9 to the Panthers.
But what about, tell me what you thought of the game between the Bills and the Dolphins.
I thought the Bills looked like the best team in the NFL. I thought their defense shut down a team that had just scored over 70 points. I thought their offense looked like they could score on every drive. They scored 48, and I'm saying they could have scored 60 plus if they had needed to, but the Dolphins didn't press them. So they just, killed the clock late in the game. But they had 48 points with like 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter. So I think
48 points against the Dolphins.
Against the, which is, they're not a great D. I get that. But like, Purdy scored like 30 against the Dolphins. So you're like, well, Purdy beat the Dolphins too. I'm like, not in the same way, brother. Not in the same way. It is, the Bills look like the best team. Now, one thing that's going to hurt them is they lost Tre'Davious White, their star corner, for the season with an ACL. They will get some relief from that because Von Miller is supposed to start practicing this week, and he is a premier edge. At least last I knew. He's getting older, so you never know when that drop-off will come. But the Von Miller, obviously a couple years ago, the Rams won the Super Bowl with him and Aaron Donald and Leonard Floyd on that line. So that could help take some of the sting out of Tre'Davious White being out. Also, Poyer was out during that game, and it didn't sound serious, so he should be back. Jordan Poyer, their star safety, who goes back there with Micah Hyde, arguably the best safety tandem. If it's not us, it's them. So I thought that I tweeted out before our game that the Bills look like the best team in the NFL. On about without Tre'Davious White, and obviously we looked really good against the Cards, but the Cards are not nearly as good as the Dolphins, folks. Like, Cards offense isn't close to the Dolphins offense. I don't think their defense is as good either. And ultimately there was not much pressure on Purdy. He made a lot of nice throws, but it was not realistic to what I think most of our games are going to look like this season against better defenses. So I was really happy to see Purdy hit a couple deep balls. People said, oh, you said he couldn't do it. I'm like, no, I didn't say that. I said he hadn't done it in this season. And I want him to do it. I'm rooting for him to do it. So I'm really happy that he did. But I'll be happier if he does it consistently and versus better teams. So I'm not trying to poo-poo him or say, he's not good. He is. And I'm getting closer. I basically had him after the Giants game. I had moved him up from, like I'd said, 14 to 18 was where I had him. I said mid, 16, 14 to 18, 16 in the middle. And then after the Giants game, I moved him up to 11 to 15. And now I've moved him up again. I've got him 8 to 12. Let me ask you, Pedro, where do you have Brock Purdy ranked in the NFL right now?
You've got him at 12?
8 to 12. I don't do single numbers. I do ranges. I think Dak is right in that same tier.
Yeah, he's better than Derek Carr.
Yeah. Okay, here's who he's not better than. Let's do it this way. He's not better than Mahomes is number 1. Josh Allen is number 2. I'm still going to say Burrow number 3. He's playing hurt. I don't think he's. I think Herbert is number 4. I had Rodgers 5. You got to take him out. So now 5. I'm going to go with like either Trevor Lawrence or Hurts or Lamar, but that's just sort of like 5 to 7. Okay.
Yeah.
And then maybe Purdy's 8, but then you could throw Dak. You could throw Cousins.
He's not below. He's not above
Stafford.
8.
I think Stafford is still better. And now he's hurt now, but healthy Stafford I think is better than Purdy. So I mean, I think I can name 9 guys pretty easily, 8, 9 guys pretty easily that are better.
I think that's good judgment. I think 8 to 12 is exactly where he is right now. And for a second season, not even, he didn't even have a first season, but in a very early career, and obviously he played a lot at Iowa State. That's a great rating. Great rating.
Yeah, it's incredible for not even a full season. It's incredible to be mid. What I was calling him, people thought I was being mean calling him mid. I was like, that's incredible for a rookie, especially You know, I keep want to say underrated, but what is the right word for what we call him? How did I totally space on this? The last guy in the
Over
draft,
Mr. Irrelevant.
Mr. Irrelevant. Thank you. Underrated was Steph Curry.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially for Mr. Irrelevant, coming in as a third string quarterback, not getting a lot of first team reps in the offseason of 2022. Incredible story. All that's incredible. But then when you start doing well, then you have to start comparing them to the other QBs that have been there for a long time that should, have an advantage because of all that experience. With the win loss, I got it. I mean, it's incredible. No one, this is insane what's going on with that. But I just always say QB wins are a stat for casuals.
Mm,
And if you don't believe me, look at Matt Stafford. We've probably
mm,
talked about this, but
yeah.
on the Lions, 12 years, 0-3 in the playoffs, 1 year, super team Rams, 4-0, Super Bowl champ.
Yeah.
Same guy.
Yeah.
Same guy. So QB
Yeah.
wins, it
Yeah.
matters who else is on the team. You got to have at least
Yeah.
decent protection and at least reliable weapons. And if you've got the best group of weapons in football like we do, and you got decent protection, or I think it's a little better what we got, and Kyle calling the plays, you should be towards the top of the league in offensive. And I mean, maybe not like what we saw Sunday, but what we saw the first 3 weeks, I expect to see nothing worse than that on average. You may have an
Mm.
anomaly, but yeah.
And the one thing that I guess that, there's a little bit of swimming against the stream is, you got Brian Boldinger saying, it's beautiful football. And which it is, which it is in terms of who he was playing against. All he's doing here is just throwing out that side throw to Christian McCaffrey, who did it all. So that's not really saying that Purdy's the one who did that. But anyway, there is a big push amongst the national media to get this guy on the podium. And I, for one, I love the kid. I think he's phenomenal. I love the way that he carries himself. I love his humility. I love his decision making. I love his courage. I love his story. He comes from a great family. I love his faith. But we just got to be. We just got to be. We just got to keep our feet on the ground. Got to keep our feet on the ground. Hey,
Hey, there we go. Oh my God,
there we
Randy
go.
got it. I voted for Pedro. Oh my God, that's it.
That's perfect.
That's it. This is our new name of our show. Now I
Yeah,
just got to get the overlays made. Oh
yeah,
my
that's
God,
the
I
one.
voted for Pedro. That's it. Oh, great work, Randy.
Well done, Randy.
A little golf clap for you. That's
It'll,
awesome. Awesome.
so can we just talk about our D for a sec? Because for me, look, Josh Dobbs, if that's his name,
Yeah, it is.
is that his name, Joshua
Yep.
Dobbs?
Yeah, Josh
Yeah,
Dobbs.
yeah.
Yep.
Sorry, I just wanted to make sure I got it right.
Yeah.
He's a good quarterback, right? And he's playing a vaunted D, a defensive line, to make any impact on his throwing ability. He
Yeah.
was sacked once?
Yep.
We were getting multiple
Hargrave.
sacks a
Hargrave
game.
had the only sack.
Hargrave, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, they're double teaming Bosa,
And they're
and
holding him. They're holding him
yeah,
mercilessly, and there's no penalty flags, coming
yeah,
on that.
yeah. And so it just doesn't look like the D of last year. Do you agree with that?
I agree with that. D last year was
Yeah,
number 1 overall. This D does not look as good. We're missing Jimmy Ward. Jimmy
oh,
Ward was an
100%.
absolute difference maker. I said it all off
He's
season
a
when people are like,
baller.
"Oh, we don't need Jimmy's,"
Yeah,
whatever.
we do.
I'm like, no, we just couldn't afford him, but we will miss him, and we are missing him big time. Isaiah Oliver cannot cover like Jimmy Ward, not even close, especially on speedy guys. So
Mm.
Jimmy Ward's missing. We're missing a lot of edge talent with Amenahue, Ebucom, and
Yeah,
Willis.
yeah.
Farrell's all right. Jake Jackson's all right, but and Bosa's not himself still. I don't think Bosa is rounded into
No, he's
game shape
not.
yet.
He definitely is not. There's
He's
no
not.
way. Nah.
And then I think we're missing Aziz Al-Shire, our strong
Yeah, the
side
linebacker.
linebacker who went to the Titans. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think we miss him a little bit. And we'll definitely miss him if Dre or Fred miss any time. But I think we just
yeah.
miss him overall. So yeah, I mean that's a lot of it. And
And Wilkes,
I think Wilkes is all right. But yeah, I mean we just
he's
haven't played. I
good,
mean,
right? He's
here's
good.
the thing. Here's the thing. The Steelers' defense is anemic. The Steelers' offense is anemic. Kenny
Yeah.
Pickett, those guys, they can't score. Same thing with the Giants. The Giants have like the 5th lowest yards per game. The Steelers are down there. I think they're second to lowest. After the Jets are the lowest. Steelers second to lowest. So like the Rams are decent, but we had trouble getting pressure on the Rams too, right? I mean, part of that was Stafford throwing quickly. But we have not been tested. Like I said, I don't think we've played any. We definitely haven't played any contenders. We may not have played any playoff teams yet. The Rams might be the
Mm,
closest, I think the Rams might be the closest. They're 2-2, but
mm,
now Stafford's hurt. I don't know what will happen with that. But if Stafford's healthy, I almost like them better than the Steelers, honestly, because
mm.
the Steelers, Puka Nakua is going bananas.
He's
That kid
unbelievable.
he's crazy good,
I couldn't
crazy.
believe how he was getting so open all the time.
Yep.
He was killing me.
Yeah, and it's not just versus us. He had
No.
the most catches of any rookie ever in the first 2 games, like smashed that record, and it was versus us that he did it.
Yeah.
And he hasn't slowed down. I mean, he hasn't
No.
been as much as against us, but he's been very consistent this season. He's very impressive,
The thing
young
about
rookie, and he got his first touchdown too against the Colts.
yeah, right. Yeah. The thing I'm just trying to look at some things, well, some aspects that are contributing to our D being not as just not clicking and don't look as good as last year is that you had Salah, right, who'd been, it took him a couple of years to get it right. D'Amico was in the system for a very long time, so he was just stepping up. Yeah, I
He was
loved I
plug
loved
and
Graham.
play. Plug and play.
Yeah, that's
And
right,
part of
exactly. It was
Salah's ramp up was the talent. He didn't have
that's right.
Bosa. He didn't have for the first 2 seasons. He didn't have Bosa. He had Sherman in 2018, but Sherman was like coming off 2 Achilles. And we didn't
Yeah,
have D Ford. We got Quan in 2019 too. D, Quan, Bosa all in 2019. And they finally moved Jimmy Ward to free safety, which was big
yeah,
in 2019 too, instead of making him play nickel and his boundary where he really struggled. Jimmy Ward is
yeah,
not a boundary corner.
yeah. And then,
Hey, we got Cole's Cowboys in the house. It's a Cowboys fan. I'm
well,
trying to get him on Wednesday. Cole, I'm working on childcare, someone to come help my wife watch our kids. So still trying to make it happen for 5:15 on Wednesday. I had Cowboy Greg on earlier. It was a lot of fun. Learned a lot from him, and we can talk more about that as we get into that matchup. But go ahead. I don't want to cut you off. We're still on the
no,
cards
that's
here.
all right. No, I was just saying that, it's pretty much covered. D'Amico was plug and play, and Wilkes comes from a very different philosophy, I think, in terms of, he's like a DB. He's got a DB system, and I agree with what Donald said. Well, I thought anyway. Zach Wilson played. I thought okay yesterday.
He did. He's TBD. He still needs
Yeah,
more time.
yeah, yeah, 100%. But anyway, that's what I think. Just there's a couple of things, right? There's the Bosa, there's the Wilkes situation. There's Jimmy not being there. It's Aziz Shahir. There was another guy that you mentioned that I think that's missing.
Ebukam, Amenahue.
Maybe Carmen and Menahue and Willis. I can't believe we let
Willis.
Willis go. He would have been cheap.
And he was still a free agent last I saw too. Something must have happened to him.
He was good, and he's been pretty good for the
Alberto says Wilkes is mixing up the potions. I'm not worried about it. All right,
fair enough. You know what? It's only 4 games in, so he's got to he's got to find his groove, and he's up in the box, which I don't know. The people have got their their preferences on where they see the game. But anyway, that's all I wanted to say about the D. But I'd love to get into 49ers. It's time to crown him.
There he
Mm.
goes, 49er King, 510 in the house. We also got Donald Johnson. I don't know if I called him out specifically.
No, you haven't
Nancy
called him out yet. If
Cameron,
you want to do that
she's a
now.
great watcher and interactor. Thanks for being here, Nancy. Obviously, Randy Daytona, my all-star. Thank you, Randy, my all-pro. And Nancy says the Jets should release their kicker. I didn't know. Did he miss a lot? I guess.
I
Oh,
don't.
that's right. I saw him hit the one that hit the upright and just bounced straight back
Oh no.
uh, late in the game. And he said, Ted, aren't you in the LA? No. I'm mid peninsula, Randy, between San Francisco and San Jose, about 20 miles north or 15 miles north of Levi's. So yeah, near Palo Alto,
Nice.
um, near
Nice
Stanford.
area.
Yeah, near Stanford. And then Nancy says she's available to kick. There you go. Nancy's kicked my ass a few times, so she could probably kick a field goal. Randy Chen says, "Yeah, Willis may have burned some bridges. Yeah, I don't know. Something's going on with him
Yeah.
because he seemed too good to be a free agent, and he's not expensive either. It's not like
He's
it's a
not
money.
expensive. And he seemed, when you saw some of that locker room footage after the Green Bay game, 2 years ago,
Oh
he
yeah,
seemed
he was
really
the hero.
humble.
He was the
Yeah, that's
hero
right.
of the game.
That's right.
He literally they went down and they were about to score a field goal and he pulled a blocker down so Jimmy Ward could jump up and block the field goal.
That's right.
Willis defeated the blocker and Ward blocked the field goal and then he blocked the punt that Huff ended up with and ran in for our only touchdown of the game.
That's
Like
right.
I mean that should have been capital for a lot of goodwill, but I don't know. Something must have happened. There must be something
Mm,
behind the scenes that we don't know about, or he just fell
mm.
off. That can happen too. Maybe he just let himself go, or maybe sometimes people they sort of I don't know this thing of like where you look at life as a destination instead of a journey, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
I made it. And it's like you never make it, folks. You always got to keep grinding. You always got to keep working. Keep trying to make yourself better because you're never there. It's all a journey, not a destination. And you can have some fun on the way, maybe take a little pit stop, but don't ever stop because the world will pass you by if you do. No doubt about it. So what else we got? Randy, what are you talking about, Willis? Wanting to stay even just so you can say that. What you talking about, Willis? That's from Facts of Life.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
no, Different Strokes. Different Strokes
Different
with
strokes.
Todd Bridges. And
Yeah.
yeah, that was a great show. No doubt about
Good
it.
show.
Yeah. So never see anything like that these days. But hey, what are you gonna do?
No
Different times.
way. We've got a we've got a
Different
show
times
down in
for different strokes.
Well, we've got a show down in Australia called Kingswood Country. I'll send you some clips where I'll just DM you. You will not believe how inappropriate. Like if it was played today, that would be pulled off the air and sued.
Oh,
Um,
crazy.
but
I know.
anyway, do you want to get into the Cowboys?
So Nancy says they would have won if they made both. Yeah, it was a really close game last night between the. Well, let's talk about that game a little bit first, real quick.
Yeah,
Did
yeah.
you watch any of the game or
I just watched the shorter highlights.
Okay, because like the whole thing was like Taylor Swift and Kelsey and like they're both blowing up from dating each other and like he's gained like almost 1 million Insta followers from dating her and his jersey sales went from 19 to 5th in the league. He's the 5th best-selling jersey now, Travis Kelsey. And like she was there at the game and all of a sudden ticket prices doubled and they couldn't get a seat for a Jets game, which is like very really easy to get before. And anyway, it's just kind of interesting. And the Chiefs kind of scuffled, but they found a way to win. And Zach Wilson played all right, except for like he had a fumble that he lost. I felt like that was kind of it,
Mm.
where it was like he botched the snap and the Chiefs recovered it. And that's kind of, and then obviously as Nancy pointed out, the 2 bricked field goals
I can babysit.
from
I've
Oregon.
got a
How are you
cons-
going to do that, Nancy? She lives. Are you visiting?
I
She could come watch me do the show live. That'd be kind of interesting. I need you in the audience, though, Nancy. It doesn't do any good if you're here.
I've got
Kidding.
a
Obviously, if
conspiracy
you
theory,
can help babysit, that'd be great.
Ted. I've got a conspiracy theory regarding
I
that
love
whole
conspiracy. You know me, I'm Mr. Tinfoil Hat, right?
well, the NFL is a smart organization, and look at the demographic that Taylor Swift is pulling into the NFL.
Yeah, it's kids, the youngins. It's the tweens. It's the whatever this
And
new generation is
and
called.
that Toy Story cartoon game. Did you
Yeah.
see
Oh
that?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. It's brilliant.
My God. But
It's brilliant.
anyway, so that's just my little. I was thinking about it. I was going like,
That's what
no,
I was
this
saying. I was saying like, oh, I wonder if it might have been actually fixed, like everything else.
it's so.
So I
I
love
mean,
a good tinfoil hat conspiracy theory. I'm
yeah,
down
dude.
with this one for sure, man.
Oh
For
man, I
sure.
am. I
It's like a marketer's wet dream. This
marketer's
magic.
dream. It's too perfect.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it could
Oh,
be luck, but it just doesn't seem like it. It just seems like way too
no.
much. It's just the way things are. Yeah,
And there
no.
was a picture. There was a picture that I saw where they had Mahomes' wife sitting there looking all glum, like, and because all the attention was on Taylor, and no
Yeah.
attention was on her anymore. So
Oh, poor Brittany. Well, everybody hates Brittany and Jax or whatever Jackson Mahomes. The brother and the wife of Patrick Mahomes are super annoying. So
yeah,
I just as soon not see them, and I'd much rather see Taylor Swift. Honestly, I actually like her music. It's kind of interesting. I was saying I live near Stanford. There's actually a Taylor Swift class at Stanford now because her music lyrics are so closely tied to American literature or literological theories or principles or something that they decided this is
really.
worthy of being in the curriculum at Stanford University. There's actually like Taylor Swift 101, which means there'll probably be a graduate class before long.
I got to look up that. I got to look that up. That because
Yeah.
all that stuff it really interests me.
Yeah. No, it is. It's really, it blows me away to see what people are learning in school these days. I mean, I know I didn't barely learn a thing, and I was
Yeah,
there a lot longer than you're supposed to be. I won't say exactly how long, but
yeah.
the people said enjoy college, Ted, and I like just leave it to say like I took it to heart.
Where did you go to college, Ted?
Well, that's an interesting question because I went to three colleges. So I started out at UCSB, and
Yep.
then I went to Foothill College, which is a local JC here in the Mid Peninsula.
Yeah.
It's more South Bay. It's I drove farther than there were quite a few closer, but it had the best reputation. So I drove pretty far to get there on a daily basis, and then transferred to Santa Clara University, which is where I got my
Yeah.
degree.
Right.
So it's the same as Brent Jones, our
Yeah.
49ers tight end. He was way before me, obviously. And then Steve Nash was there when I played, or when I went to school. And
Yeah.
we were the first ever 15 seed in the NC2A brackets tourney to knock off a number 2 seed. Santa Clara beat Arizona when I was there. Steve
Wow.
Nash was incredible, and obviously went on to have a great, NBA career. Other than no rings, he's one of the best to ever do it. So yeah, so that's a little bit about me.
Because the only I was my as you know my backstory to the Niners is that when I was living in America in California,
Yeah,
um, my girlfriend's parents were ticket holders to the stick, right? And so, but she went to Chico for some time, and I know that's a big party
yeah, it's a
college.
super party. So was UCSB when I went there. It was
Yeah,
hard to get in, but it was like of the UCs, it was by far the biggest party school.
yeah,
Not as big
yeah,
as Chico State though, because it was not hard to get into Chico State, or
yeah,
not
yeah,
as hard. They're
yeah,
all difficult to get into. I shouldn't
yeah,
denigrate anybody. So
yeah. But
but
anyway,
mostly, even getting into school wasn't due to great grades. It was I just did well on tests. I was a good test taker.
yeah,
I have a good memory, but like concentrating in class, nothing really ever stuck with me. This is the first thing I've done where I'm like actually like really appeals to me. Where it's like I want to do this,
yeah.
as the day is long.
Hey,
And
have you
so
mentioned you got to mention your sponsor?
Oh, you're right. Yeah, we're about 44 minutes in. So, yes, up in the corner, you'll see a TTG. That stands for the Travelstead Group. And they are a retail and hospitality logistics. So, they do transportation and warehousing for brick and mortar. They do FFE, which is fixed furniture and equipment. They do OSE, which is operating supplies equipment. So they do like new store openings, rollouts, relocations, decommissions. So like third party logistics, global networks, retail logistics, hospitality solutions. Those are all the hashtags. From the first mile to the final mile and everywhere in between, Travelstead has you covered. So I work with Nick there and Henry. They're both great folks. And their website is in the description of the show today. It's in my about page for YouTube. It's in my bio for Twitter, also Instagram and Facebook too, if you guys follow me there. But the big ones are obviously Twitter and YouTube and the show. So just click on it, check out the video. It's exciting stuff. And they, it's business to business, so it's not really for consumers. But if you're in that space, check them out. Make sure you tell them Ted sent you. Appreciate it.
Perfect. Thank you very much, TTG.
Yes, TTB, brought to you by TTG, or soon enough to be voted for Pedro.
Pedro.
I freaking love that, Randy. That was so good.
Very good. So
Nailed it. Real quick, there was a comment I wanted to get to that I've gotten pretty far past. Randy Daytona said we need to start labeling players AK as an after Kyle, because like you just most players are not as good when they leave his system. And Jimmy G is the latest casualty of that, no doubt about it. But we've seen it with others as well too. And really, not many people leave Kyle and go off to do great things.
no.
Jet McKinnon was one, but that was mostly because he was
Jet
injured.
McKinnon is killing it.
Yeah, he's the only one I can think of that like really. I guess also DJ Reed, but that was we didn't really try to let him go. We just he got snaked when we tried to let him go to IR, and the Seahawks snaked us. So that's a little different, I don't blame Kyle as much for that. It was, I don't know, we'll see. It wasn't like we were like, oh, we're not going to pay him or something. Like, we traded him away. What else we got here? I'm a little behind on the chats now after all of that. But did you want to talk more about our game? Do you want to talk about the Cowboys game some? We can loop back to the cards.
Well, let's just wrap up what we thought.
Yeah.
I mean, look, it was.
Keep me on track, Pedro. This is why I love you.
Yeah, let's wrap up what we thought about the game, and then let's look forward to the Cowboys. So, it was a dominant performance. There was a time when there was only 4 points in it. No, 4 points, 6 points in the third quarter, where they hung around a little bit, and that was down to our D. And Michael Wilson he's a rookie, and he's a good receiver. So I think a great performance by Brock Purdy. Still some chinks in the D to work out. CMC is an explosive machine. Good to see that we didn't have to use.
Looked uncoverable.
That's right. Ayuk was uncoverable. I love Brandon Ayuk. It's good to see that we didn't have to use Debo that much. I thought that the thing that he keeps going back to sometimes, Kyle, which led to the Purdy sack and us the only punt of the game, was that end around that we went with that he gave to Debo. Whenever Debo's in the backfield, there's no real wrinkle where they don't throw it to him. So or hand it off to him. And so I just think there's got to be a bit more wrinkles around disguising. If you are going to give it to Debo on an end around or a short pass, let's just get the blocking scheme, in a place where he can actually make some yards. But he got tackled.
Debo was more of a decoy in that game.
Yeah.
He was just window dressing.
That's right.
Making sure he didn't get hurt and just take some attention away from everybody else. That's it.
Yeah, and they gave him the ball, and that led to their only sort of offensive slip up. So that was that. We didn't have 3rd and 1. And I think, from a game perspective, and we just the machine rolls on, but the machine is facing the Cowboys. So
yeah, huge. Before we get to it, let's address this, because Alberto Soto brought up a really good point. I talked about it in my last show, and that's maybe why I forgot to bring it up in this show. So my apologies, Alberto. You're right. Russ Francis died in a plane crash today. Yeah. He was a great 49ers tight end in the early 80s. Before Brent Jones, then obviously before Vernon Davis, before Kittle, this great legacy of great 49ers tight ends. He was in Lake Placid, New York, where the 1980 Olympics were held, where the Miracle on Ice happened, where the USA defeated Russia, one of the biggest upsets in sporting history in any sport. Incredible. But yeah, that's where it happened. He had, I guess, purchased a plane tour company, and he was with like someone from that company, or an employee or the CEO or something like that. And the two of them died near the runway takeoff. So tragic story. Anytime anybody passes away, prayers up for
Mm.
Russ Francis, his family, his friends, anyone who knew and loved him. And yeah, I'm sorry I didn't bring that up sooner. Slipped my mind, as happens with these things. Like, I don't really usually have a set, um, script for these shows. It's just sort of like we talk, and as things come up, I talk about them. So appreciate you reminding me there, Alberto.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Alberto.
very,
Yeah, I
very
saw that
important.
on Twitter, and that's
Real life. That's
yeah,
real life
that's the real
tragedy.
stuff, right? This
Yeah.
Taylor Swift marketing drive is, that's what takes it away. That's what takes away from real people and takes it, it drives your attention into places that, that yeah,
Well, just never forget that the NFL is listed as an entertainment business, not a sports business.
that's right.
So that's always important to know when you see these types of things. They're about making money and expansion, and that's why they're doing all the international games to get international fans. And you got to be aware that's what they're doing. And some things may, happen that are less than taste. I don't want to say distasteful, but I don't know. Just it may not
It's
be
on the
exactly
edge.
the way you would do it as a football purist. It's not just about pure football with NFL. There's an entertainment value to it, and you got to keep that in mind when you watch. That
Mm,
there's more to it
yeah.
than meets the eye sometimes.
Rest in peace.
Yeah. So
So
we were talking about the Cowboys.
yeah, tell me what so you had an interesting discussion with your Cowboys content creator. I'd love to hear some points because
Yeah.
this is monumental, this game.
Yes, it's huge. They, like I said, they have some, defensive tackles now. They have Hankerson, who's a run stuffer, Mozzie, who they drafted, and the Obuku Ogaboigi one, who's more of a pass rusher. They already had great edges. They have good linebackers. They have good safeties. They have Gilmore, and they have Deron Bland, who, like, even though they lost um, Diggs, Deron Bland is a hell of a corner out of Fresno State. I think he's a second or third year player. So the defense is, really good. They had some troubles against Arizona because Diggs had just gone out because they ran straight at Micah and they didn't know how to defeat that. Clearly, the Patriots were not able to do much. They only scored a field goal against the Cowboys. The Cowboys scored 2 TDs against them. I think they scored 2 TDs against the Giants, their defense. So their defense is real. And their offense, like I said, they were missing 80% of their O-line for the Cards. They got 2 of them back for the Patriots. Look how they did, 38-3. Worst loss of the Belichick, his coaching career. He's never lost by 35 points before. So now they're getting another lineman back who's pretty good. Not all pro, but no, I think they are. They're getting Tyron Smith and another one. So they're getting all the 80% that were out against the Cards are going to be supposedly ready against us. So this is and they have never ever played together, this group of 5. So this may be the best Cowboys offensive line in recent memory. And they obviously have CeeDee Lamb, they have Gallup, they picked up Brandon Cooks. We know they have Pollard, who I said a lot this offseason, if he hadn't gotten injured against us in the divisional round, they might have been able to beat us. Not saying they would have, just they might have. I think they have a real good young running back too. They've got a couple of decent tight ends. Not Dalton Schultz left, but I think they have 2 that can run or they can catch and block. And Dak, I tell you what, everybody talks about that pick against the Cards. Guess what, folks? That was his only pick of the season. And, when he doesn't throw picks, they win. And it's kind of true with the Niners, too. I think, when we don't turn the ball over more than we turn the other team over, we win. And when we give it away more than we don't, most times we lose. It's very similar across the NFL in that respect. So turnovers will be a big thing. but it's going to be a very evenly pitched game. And I never root for injuries, but I am glad Diggs is gone because it would have been even more difficult with Trayvon Diggs locking down one of our receivers. I know Ayuk cooked him in the divisional round last year, but that might not happen again. Well, it definitely won't happen because he's out with an ACL, but it might not have happened had he been healthy. Um, and they have a new kicker they like who's only missed an extra point. Last year, Maher was having kicking troubles when they played us. So there's a lot of reasons to think Cowboys are better. And as we've been talking about, I'm not sure the Niners are better. I think Purdy is better than last year, at least what I saw Sunday. The rest of the season, though, the first 3 games, I don't think look better than him in 2022 to me. And and then obviously we've got Burford who's struggling. We've got McKivitz who struggled against TJ Watt. Micah Parsons is every bit as good as TJ Watt, or certainly very, very close if he's not quite as good. So there's concerns. The rest of our offense, I think, looks pretty good. Hopefully Jennings will be back and ready. I'd like to have him back, and hopefully Debo will be 100% because he sure as shit wasn't on Sunday.
He's day to day at right now, day to day.
That sounds good to me.
Yeah.
So Nancy was saying their website is very impressive. It is. Everybody check it out. The Travelstead Group. .com. It's like I said, you can find the links everywhere on my properties, including the description here. Out of nowhere, a publicist made up this fake relationship. It could be. I mean, it could be real. You never know. They might have met somehow and maybe they hit it off. But this. It seems like this to me. This seems, or it was like, oh, I don't hate you. Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
I agree. It's publicity.
It seems like it. It's because it sure is going like wildfire. Athletes and actors never work.
Celebrities and athletes.
We'll see. But she's not really an actor, though, is she? He's
corrected himself in the next comment.
Oh, celebrities. Okay, and athletes. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, until it doesn't, though, right? Isn't that the way all these things are? It's like it's never worked before until it doesn't. Like, I don't know. It's hard to say. I don't know. We'll see. I don't think it will, but so I don't know that it's meant to. And it says, did TS leave last week's game in a popcorn machine? Who is TS?
I don't know who TS is. Taylor Swift.
Oh, okay. I don't know. Did she? That would be something to see.
Oh, something happened with the popcorn. Yeah.
Oh, Niner Gang. I like that. Happy Brocktober. I'm gonna steal that just so you know.
Yeah.
Brocktoberfest. There we go. Love it. Brockstar. Rock, Planet Brock. Randy Chen says also women of a certain age you want to. Okay, I'll leave that alone. But I guess that is true that women have more of a biological clock than men, where men can have children. I mean, just look at me. I'm 53. Not many women at 53 having babies. So, but it does happen. It's getting later and later. It's crazy. So many people in their mid to late 40s having babies. It's wild, and it just takes people longer to get settled to meet the right person these days.
And get financially settled too. Socioeconomic.
That's exactly it. You want to have a child and then put them into a situation where you can't take care of them yourself. That's not a good thing. Her thing is she breaks up with her boyfriend and writes a song. So this is about football. This is a song about football. It'll be interesting to see what her song sounds like from this one.
Mate. You can imagine.
Randy, I want to hear the bars. I bet you can make it up.
He's a suitable mate for her. He would be. He's
nice and tall at least. He's 6'5". She's 6'1", isn't she? I'm pretty sure she's over 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be taller than the girl. You don't have to, but it just seems like that's the way it works out a lot of the time. There's obviously exceptions. Oktoberfest, that's perfectly said. Yeah, it's good stuff. I'll drink to that. I mean, even though I don't drink anymore, but I'll have a bubbly water.
So if we are to beat these Cowboys, Ted,
or coffee,
our keys. This is the way I see it. we defer. That we've got it. If they score on the first drive, yeah, I think there is, Nancy. If they score on the first drive, I think that's trouble, right?
Hmm.
But I think we've got to get out to a lead and protect it. I think if they get out 2 scores, it's going to be a tough game for us.
Yeah, we really haven't seen Purdy come back. I think he came back from 10 down against the Raiders, but that Raiders D is cheeks. So yeah, it could be a bad situation if we fall far behind. But luckily, we've been starting fast. Luckily, I will say if James Conner can run against their defense, I'm pretty sure CMC can. He's a beast. Conner, he's much bigger, but
Mm,
just our run scheme with Kyle, there was a great meme that Steph Sanchez did during or shortly after the Cards game, where she had Kyle with like a microscope looking at the film of the Cards game. He's been putting in extra reps for this one. This is I mean, like I said, I mean, if it's not this game, it's the Eagles is the biggest game of the season um, for the NFC, and really
yeah.
in the AFC. Like, who is rivaling the Bills right now? The Chiefs are not. Chiefs are not. The Bengals are not. Maybe the Ravens, but they just seem kind of pedestrian to me. I don't
Mm,
know. They're a good team. I just don't see that. I think it's literally right now. I think it's the Cowboys, the 49ers, and the Bills. And the Eagles could get there because they've got the pieces and they're young. And
mm,
the problem is we're playing in week 13. If we play the Eagles now, like I'm taking us, easily. I'm not
yeah,
maybe not bet the rent money, but I would bet a chunk on it for sure.
yeah.
Week 13 could be we might not be as healthy and they might be a lot more gelled by then. So it'll be
I
interesting to
think I
see.
think the key I think the key to this, Ted, is in the trenches in terms of our offensive line versus their offensive line, and their offensive line is better than ours, right?
Much, much better. And
Michael,
no one's even seen this offensive line. They're already
that's right.
top three. They're already top three with like mixing and matching these folks and never having all five. If they really have all five, I mean, and we had trouble putting get pressure on Doss Dobbs with the Cards O line, and the Cards O line is decent. I said their D is cheeks, and they don't have a lot of great weapons. They have Hollywood Brown and Rondale Moore. Connor's a not great back, but he's a really really solid big bruising back. But it's just it's going to look a lot different than Sunday, folks. So
Must they're gonna get to Brock so much quicker, and we saw what happened when
we're going to need Debo. Ayuk will not be just running crazy. We're going to
no,
need Debo. We're going to need Kittle. We're going to need our tough bruisers to get tough yards. It's not just going to be a free for all running all willy nilly and pell mell across the secondary.
yeah, 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 they get and what I'm trying to think, the Giants, the way they blitzed, obviously that was the most blitzed defense.
And then,
Um,
well, only for like a couple days, and then over the weekend, somebody blitzed even more. Crazy enough,
right,
but
right.
yeah, it's still one of the most of all time.
And,
Second most,
you
probably.
saw that Brock did struggle a little bit against that, right? He did
And I don't
struggle.
and I just want to clarify, I don't know that it was total blitzes, but it was percentage, blitz rate. So for the
Blitz
number of plays, the percentage that
85.7%.
were blitzes
Yeah,
was the highest at that time.
yeah.
Because I don't know that
And
we ran that many plays.
no, no, no. What I think is that, Kyle's a smart Kyle is a smart coach. He's not letting all his tricks out of the bag just yet,
Heck
right?
no, he never does.
Never does. He saves
And he
that
might
stuff
not
up.
week 5 because he may want to save him for the NFC Championship game too. If we lose and you feel like it was vanilla, that could be why.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because he's strategic like that. And yeah, it's gonna come down to how quick they get to Brock, how efficient he can be, and how our D gets to
Dak.
how Bosa performs against their offensive line. And if Bosa is still a little bit rusty, then I can see this being a very, this is gonna be a couple of points down to the wire, down to the last drive.
No doubt about it. Luckily, we have Hargrave, we have Armstead, and Kinlaw, the surprise of the season, which shouldn't be a surprise because I said in camp he was our second best player in camp after Ayuk, and both of them are balling the you know what out this season. Super glad to see it, and we're doing some five. It's not. I said if he stayed healthy, I thought he could be our best rotational piece. He's so good that we've rotated him into the starting lineup and running the bear front with 5 D linemen, 1 linebacker, and 5 DBs. So that's good to see. So Kinlaw could help with that too, and hopefully Drake Jackson can come up with something because he obviously got the hat trick, Drake Saxon hat trick week 1, and then hasn't had a sack since.
No, that's right. He's been
Randy
quiet.
said, "Hey, did anybody see Brock had like the 4th highest QBR in NFL history?" Well, he's got like the highest passer rating, which is not QBR, but passer rating, like 113. I think, is that what you already read? The Miyoko, yeah,
Yeah.
113 passer rating. And he also, the QBR is also, I think he's number 1 in QBR for this season, ahead of, I want to say, Tua? No, I don't know, I forget.
Don't know.
3 passes over 30 yards against the Cards. No, was it? I just remember
Yeah.
42 and 34. Then there were some nice 20s. I don't think there were 3, at least not 3 catches. There might have been 3 passes. I'm pretty sure the only 2 catches were to Ayuk, 42 at first and 34 later on. Oh, speaking of which, I need to upgrade. I need to update my avatar on Twitter to picture of Brock throwing to Ayuk.
And the other thing too is that that I think our home advantage is just gonna. It could be enough, if anything.
Could be the
Could
difference.
be the difference.
Levi's has a good home advantage, especially in the playoffs. We're undefeated in the playoffs at Levi's. It used to be kind of a lifeless place, and it's really gotten to be almost like Candlestick was back in the day. So that's encouraging. I do worry, though, with these ticket prices being so high that a lot of that means that's Dallas Cowboys fans driving up the prices. So it might be more of a mixed crowd than we're used to seeing at Levi's.
Yeah. Yeah. Levi.
I'm sure there's stats on that.
Yeah. Now there'll be some Cowboys. The Cowboys is probably one of the. I mean, what's the most supported team? Only 47 yards for Pollard.
But he also had 30 yards receiving or something, so he like 70 or 80 yards total. But yeah, no. But that's Bill Belichick is always going to take one person away. I think he took away CeeDee Lamb and somebody else. A couple other players stepped up for the Cowboys to make some catches. But that's definitely Bill Belichick's thing. I know we were going to try to keep this to an hour and 10, so we're coming right
Yeah,
up
I've got a jam.
Okay. Well, let's just thank everybody who came. We had a great audience interaction as always. Appreciate everybody. Randy, thank you for the name. Pedro, if you're good with
Thank
me,
you,
I'm going to
Randy.
do that. Voted for Pedro. That's going to be a thing. I'll just say peace and go Niners.